listening to Stories from Palestine podcast. My name is Crystal, and this is episode 16. And this is the first time that we are talking about flora and fauna, or fauna, or fauna. Well, I'm having trouble saying this word since I'm not a native English speaker. So in the interview, you will hear me saying fauna, which is probably a very Dutch pronunciation, but I hope that you understand what I'm talking about. Also, the sound quality of this episode is maybe not as good as you are used to because we recorded it online and it seems that there was a little problem with the microphone. But I hope you will still enjoy this episode, an interview with Rana, who has an Instagram account, Wildlife with Rana, and she is a biologist. If you enjoy listening to Stories from Palestine podcast, please go to the website storiesfrompalestine.info and subscribe to the mailing list so you will never miss an episode. You can like the Facebook page and follow the Instagram. And of course, if you want to make a donation, you are very welcome to do so. It is highly appreciated. And without further ado, let's listen to Rana, who will talk to us about flora and fauna. Rana, thank you very much for being available for the Stories from Palestine podcast. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Rana, for the listeners of the podcast, we don't know each other and we're talking on the Squadcast online, but I was very much interested in who you are and what you do after I found you on Instagram. And Instagram is an interesting medium, social medium. And I was interested because you have a page there called Wildlife Palestine. And I started following your photos, and you have beautiful photos, mainly of fauna, a little bit of flora. And I asked you about it, and you told me you're a biologist, you study biology. And I was like, okay, I need to have her on the podcast because we haven't spoken about flora, fauna at all yet. So, Rana, first, can you introduce yourself? Who are you? What did you study? What do you do?
Well, my name is Rana Hijawi. I'm a biology graduate from Beirut University. I taught science for middle school students recently in English and in Arabic, following the Cambridge and the National System of Palestine. I have a passion for wildlife photography, which I share on my page and I aspire to share with the world. And I'm happy to be here through your platform to reach more people.
We studied a little bit of fauna in my studies of the tour guide program. And I know that many people who come to Palestine, they would be very interested to know more. And especially people who haven't been yet maybe or who are interested in Palestine. So let's talk a little bit. Let's start about fauna. Because you post a lot of pictures about birds. What is it? What do you have with birds?
Well, for me, my passion for wildlife started with plants at first because of my biology, my plant professor. But then I started realizing or noticing birds from their sounds, and now I can identify them from their sounds when I'm walking around. So Palestine is very special with bird diversity and biodiversity in general. Although it's a very small area, over a small area you can find a lot of species. And for birds now, it's the migration season. In autumn, we have a lot of birds coming. And because of the geographic location of Palestine, it's in the crossroads for 3 continents. We have a lot of birds coming. And it's a really nice sight, and you can notice it from sounds, new sounds in the area.
So the birds that fly over, are they coming here to spend the winter, or are they moving away from the winter to go to warmer places?
For now, we have a lot of birds coming from Europe, like the European stonechat. We have finches. In summer, we have species from shrikes, different types. And the robin, which is a very famous bird, it comes in the winter here in Palestine, comes from Europe. But we have native birds like the Palestine sunbird. The Palestine sunbird is actually the national bird of Palestine. It's the first bird that I noticed and that actually got me into wildlife photography. I was like, what's that blue bird? I actually realized that some people at that time didn't know that it was the national bird. In 2015, it was declared that it was the national bird of Palestine. The male is vibrant blue, and the female and the juveniles are brown and grey. And you can find more pictures on my account, and I can eat on in your garden if you see it. You see it.
Yeah, we have sometimes this bird in our garden, and it's funny because it's always looking for flowers. And we have some fake flowers from IKEA hanging on our windows. And once he was trying to drink from the fake flower, but it was my opportunity to take a good picture of this beautiful bird. It's very beautiful. What are other birds that are native to Palestine?
We have house sparrows are nesting birds here, like they're native. And also we have bulbuls, the woodpecker, the Syrian woodpecker. These are birds that you can find always, like. Also, the European jay is now here. You can notice it every time you go out, and the blackbird. So these are birds that are present. Also, the hoopoe, but I don't find it much in my area because I take pictures in the city.
Can you describe the hoopoe? What does it look like?
It has a very nice crown. It's an elegant bird. It's one of my favorite birds, but I've only seen it 4 times, I think. It has a long beak. It's adapted to eat from the ground, so it's a ground feeder. It eats worms. And its long beak helps it reach underground.
I was lucky that a few months ago I saw one very close to me, and it's very beautiful, very colorful, and you feel like it could be the king of the birds or something.
Yes, true, actually. I feel the same exact way about it.
I remember somebody that I knew who used to say, he was American, when somebody asked him, do you speak Arabic? He would say, أنا بحكي عربي زي البلبل. I speak Arabic like the bulbul. Why would he say that? What's special about the bulbul?
Actually, that's a very nice question. I haven't thought about it before, but the bulbul is characterized by its nice song, bulbul. And I find it's one of the funniest birds, because it's always in couples. Like, you can always find them both together. I have really funny pictures of them looking at me, and they're just like used to staying there at a special spot.
I feel with the bulbul always that he's wearing glasses.
Yes, it's actually called the white spectacled bulbul, the one we have.
You see? Yeah, because they have a white round around their eyes. There is like a white stripe.
Yes. In Arabic, the name specifies more of the yellow bottom part of the bird.
What is it in Arabic?
Al-bulbul asfar al-ajz, which is the lower part. Asfar is yellow in Arabic.
Oh, yeah, you can see how it also in different languages there is a different emphasis of the description of these birds. Recently, we made a trip to the north. We went to Nazareth and we drove around. We went a bit more up to the Golan Heights, and we went around the Hula Lake. And around Hula Lake there, we saw huge amount of birds, but now you're saying it's the bird migration season right now. So it's logic that we would see a lot of birds at this time of the year.
Yes, for me, I was lucky enough to see 3 new birds in this time. But it was just because I noticed a new sound. It's not an intensified, because as I told you before, I live in the city, so it's not as easy to find in like a forest or a place with no sounds. But I noticed these species because of the foreign sound that I heard.
As if you're hearing foreigners speaking another language.
Yes, actually. But it's both a blessing and a curse at the same time, because I just get distracted all the time.
Do you really go out to find, when you go take these pictures, is that your aim? You go out for a walk in the nature to take pictures of birds and animals?
Yes, for me it became an activity that I do every day almost, in the evening especially. Around this time I always find bluebirds, and there is also a very nice place here. It's called Qayqab, When you come to Ramallah, if you ever come to Ramallah, we'll go there. The parakeets, the invasive species of rose-ringed parakeets, are always there, so I'm always lucky to see them there. They're not everybody's favorite, because they're very loud birds. And also the woodpecker, I always see the woodpecker there, green finches. So it's a really nice place. It's an educational garden. It's a nice place to spot birds. And also in my neighborhood, around my neighborhood, I always find birds around fig trees. They're everyone's favorite. Who doesn't love figs?
So the birds would eat from the fig trees, and that's also maybe how they spread the seeds
Yes.
of the tree.
Birds maintain the balance of everything, because we're talking about entire ecosystems here. That's why it's very important to keep wildlife, plants, and always sort of plant more native trees to have these birds around. They fight pests, they spread seeds.
Did you study also about wildlife in Palestine, like animals?
Yeah, it was more of a passion for myself, because we didn't have a course dedicated for wildlife in Palestine. I actually aspired to have that as an actual program. But the Museum of Natural History in Bethlehem is actually doing a great job with regards to that, so shout out to them. But in university itself, we had more courses focused on plant research. There isn't something for ornithology or bird wildlife itself.
Actually, Dr. Mazen Koumsieh, who established the Palestine Nature Museum, he was our professor in the college. He taught us about flora and fauna. So I had it was only like one semester, but I had a very good teacher. Can you name, for people who haven't been here yet or who have not maybe been able to leave the cities when they visited Palestine, can you mention some of wildlife that you can find here, and maybe also look at the different geological or geographical regions? Because in Palestine we have all these different regions.
So the topography of Palestine is very special, like you said. Everything. Birds look for climate, they look for topography differences, and the distribution of plants, because that's what they feed on, so the vegetation. And in Palestine, we have, let's just stick to extreme areas, which is the Jordan Valley and, say, mountains of Jerusalem. You have very high temperatures and moderate temperatures. So, and different soils, therefore different plants and different food. So in Palestine, these birds can travel or go to the areas that they are more adapted to or find their vegetation in. For me, for example, the crested lark, it's called the crested lark. It's a bird that you can find in the Jordan Valley area. And in our area, you can find the Eurasian jay. So every bird is adapted for an area. If we're going to talk about plants now, the Jerusalem crocuses, which are among my favorite flowers, and I find them very magical. Yes, they are blooming now in our area.
I saw them. Yeah, beautiful, light purple.
Yes, and pink.
So you have this flower that is blooming now, even though it's fall, it's the autumn. And then you will have others that will be blooming in spring again.
Yes, and some will bloom in December.
Yeah, for me, I have to get used to this, because in Holland we have like the fall and the winter is completely dead. Nothing is growing. And then you start seeing things again in March, April. But here you already now, after the first rain,
yes,
you start seeing things coming up and growing green. Yeah. Hey, and if we talk about mammals, what are the type of mammals that we can find in Palestine?
The largest land animal that you can find in Palestine is the mountain gazelle. I was lucky to see it once in Nablus. Also, Palestine has a really diverse spectrum of animals because of, again, its topography, especially topography. There are actually 116 species of animals compared to 140 in the entire Europe, which is 300 times larger.
Oh.
So we have hedgehogs, gazelles, also the wildcat of Palestine. For me, I've seen the hedgehog also recently in my area. But these animals really need to be brought to attention more for people, and conservation is very important.
When we went last weekend to the north, we saw the hyrax. Did you see a hyrax?
No, I've never seen one really.
I think that generally they live more in desert areas, but we were in a pretty green area. And I will send you a picture.
Yes, please.
And a video. He was just a meter away from us, I think, because there were lots of people coming there. He got used to people. He wasn't scared. And he was staring at me, and I was getting closer, step by step, to take a picture of the hyrax. We don't have hyrax it looks like almost like a huge marmot or a huge desert rat, but really I'm talking about half a meter in size. So I think, or maybe that was my imagination. Maybe he was a little bit smaller than that. But
Yeah, that's really nice.
why did you decided to study biology, and how did your family respond to that?
For me, chemistry was always my favorite subject in school. But in my last year, in my senior year, I was preparing for my SAT exam in biology. And I fell in love with every form of life on that book, like from the primitive to the most complex. And I decided to study biology. When I started with the program, I sort of merged my hobby for photography with my passion for wildlife, and it became like an exploration activity for me. And then I made my Instagram account, which sort of reinforced my love for my major. And I got a lot of support from my department of biology.
Are there many women in this field in Palestine?
In the field of wildlife, we have a lot of female students pursuing environmental studies, environmental masters at university. Among them are actually friends of mine. It's a very interesting topic, like the conservation of the environment, water treatment, and all these fields have a lot of female students. And I think it's very important to direct these programs to the public and to raise awareness, not only just professionally for audience that are into the scientific field, but also for people to know more about Palestine and cherish the land itself to actually take care of the environment around us.
What I noticed when people are coming to visit Palestine is that one of the remarks they make is that they feel that there is so much trash laying around and that there doesn't seem to be a lot of nature conservation. And then we often discuss this, like, is this mentality? Is this the military occupation by Israel? Is this the government that is incapable of doing something? What's your opinion about that?
For me, it begins with cherishing the land itself. Like when they are aware of other creatures that are present on the land, we're capable of sort of nurturing this love for caring for the land. But also there are reasons with regards to occupation, like the space and the area that is present for Palestinians is really small and is overpopulated. So if we're going to talk about the effect for the environment with regards to Palestine, it's affected largely by the segregation wall and the annexation of the land. And even the water is polluted by settlements. And farmers that use these lands that are polluted does not only impact the environment and the wildlife, it also impacts people.
You said that you were teaching. Is this something that you will discuss with your students, or what is the things that you would teach?
I taught science actually. Now I'm studying on my own now to pursue my master's soon, inshallah. But when I taught science, it was more of divided into biology, chemistry, and physics. So I taught them mostly chemistry. I didn't get the chance to do the thing I wanted to, which is talk more about wildlife in Palestine. And I aspire to actually share the love for wildlife with young minds because they are more curious. And when people are more curious and have wonder, you can actually, it's a more fun experience to learn by observing the world around you rather than just reading it off a textbook. Or just it's important to learn about species outside Palestine, but it's also very important to know the species around you.
Are there any initiatives like that in Palestine for wildlife? Any organizations or institutions?
I have seen Mahmiyat.ps. They organized something with regards to bird observation from balconies. It was an event actually that I participated in too, which was really nice because it encouraged people to spot birds from their balcony because we're all in quarantine and soon we will be again. But it was a really nice initiative. And I hope to see more wildlife movements here in Palestine.
Did you share with each other all the birds that you spotted? How did that work?
Yes, they made a Facebook page and whereby people can share their findings. It's called Citizen Science, whereby locals can gather data, and this data can be useful for qualitative purposes. So over time, you can spot patterns, like this bird has been affected by climate, the climate changed in this area, or this bird has been hunted, or so this activity is not only important for awareness, but it also can bring up data. That's why it's important to make more of these and even share them on a more professional vlog or site.
Is there any kind of ministry of nature or like which ministry in Palestine would be concerned with nature?
I've seen recently that they made an exhibition for pictures, but I still think, like, I go back to this point that these things should be directed to young people to get them more involved. It's not like you're just gonna talk to people in the scientific field or the research field. To reach more audience, they need to market themselves. For instance, through Instagram. I think Instagram is a very great platform to begin such things.
If you were to, let's say you got a job where you can organize excursions for young people, where would be the places you would take them? And what would be the kind of animals you think you would go and see with them?
I would first take them to the educational garden of Haifa in Ramallah. It's my favorite place to start. And then I would take them to Nablus. Nablus has a lot of really nice mountains to hike. For me, I've seen orchids there for the first time and tulips. So I would take them there then in February. And I have never taken a picture of an eagle before. So there are also eagles in the mountain.
Ah, birds of, what do you call them? Birds of prey.
Birds of prey.
Yeah, there are many here in Palestine.
Yeah, there are birds of prey. And there are owls. And I think buzzards. In Arabic, they have 3 names also. That's why I always mix them up. Yeah, but birds of prey. For me, I find them absolutely fascinating because of their wingspan, their very large wingspan. So to observe them in the mountain is a nice experience.
I don't know if you know, in the Bethlehem area, there is the valley called Maghrour Valley near to Beit Jala. And I was walking there one day and a white owl, it was flying over me. It was at least, it was 2 meters, I'm sure, and no sound. He was literally less than a meter. He flew over me and no sound. I didn't hear him. I only saw him.
Yeah, they are very fascinating. This is so that the prey won't run away. That's right.
Yeah, so it was incredible. Yeah. And have you ever done any kind of trip to the desert? Because I assume that the desert animals would be much different from the ones in the mountains.
Yeah, I haven't really. As I mentioned before, it's because I stay in the city for most of the time, and I've been only to Nablus before for a hike. So I look forward to go to the desert area for a hike because there are a lot of pages here that organize hikes there.
Do you feel, that's maybe a very personal question now? Maybe, yeah. It's like, do you feel that if you were a male biologist, you would have more options to go on your own, just go into the desert than as a female?
For me, my parents are very supportive. Like, I never experienced a rejection with regards to me going on a trip. I went recently with, it was an event called the Photo Marathon organized by the European Union. It was a 5-day program. We went to Hebron, but to the city, the old city of Hebron. We went to visit places in Palestine in general, and the Lemon Valley in somewhere near Ramallah. So, which was also a long trip. For me, as a female biologist, it was just because I was busy with work in the previous time that I didn't want to go on long hikes.
I hope that you will have a lot of opportunity to do that, because I would love to see your photos, because you're a really good photographer also. So it's a really good combination. Just for people who who don't really know the landscape of Palestine. So we have the coastal plains, which is on the west part of the country. Then we have the mountain ridge, and then we have the Jordan Valley, which is a deep valley with the desert. So there's like at least these 4 different climates and types of soil. So what are the kind of, when we talk about vegetation and trees, what are not typical trees and plants that grow in Palestine that maybe don't grow in Europe or the United States?
Olive trees, oak trees, we have oak trees and figs, all these native plants or native trees. We have also a lot of shrubs types of shrubs that warblers like to look for insects in. Also, there are plants, normal plants whereby Palestine sunbird that likes to look for the nectar there. Wildflowers.
What is the favorite tree or plant you would think that the Palestine sunbird would go to? Where do you find it a lot?
I find it a lot, surprisingly, in Econops, which is, do you know what? It's
Thistles.
Yes. I find it there because after these die, actually, they have a lot of insects. And especially in the time where they are feeding their youngs, the Palestine sunbird, I always find it there. And for me, at first, I was fascinated, like, why is it there? There is no nectar in there anymore. But turns out that they can actually feed on spiders, and I was lucky enough to see a picture of her, to take a picture of a sunbird eating a spider, or taking a spider. Yeah, so for me it's fascinating because the plant is no longer alive, or what we call it alive, but it's still giving to this sunbird. It's still an ecosystem by itself.
It's very important. We learned a lot from Dr. Mazen Kumsi also about the ecosystems. And maybe I want to direct my question a little bit now about the reality situation here, the political situation is where you have all of historic Palestine, which is now divided into where Israel created its state, and the West Bank, where in parts the Palestinian Authority has authority. But the land, the animals, they don't see borders. They go from here to there. They are free in a way to cross. But in the same time, are there any, obstacles or challenges as a biologist in this whole political situation?
Definitely there is, because I don't see most of the wild birds that are, for instance, in the regions that are occupied. So that creates a gap in my trips. Also, the animals are actually affected by these separations, because settlements were built, a lot of trees were cut, and recently a lot of olive trees were cut. So we're talking about entire ecosystems for these animals and their nesting spots or places where they find their food and find their mates. So a lot were displaced.
Wow, we're talking about almost an ethnic cleansing, not only of people, but also of the native animals.
Yes.
Right, I never even thought about it, but it's true. Where animals used to have their place where they lived, there is now settlements being built. And in a settlement, you don't have an ecosystem for these animals to live. So they also pushed out. Yeah. So Rana, imagine that some foreigners want to come to Palestine for a visit, and they are traveling around and they want to see some animals. So they're going to go on a hike or something. What would be the kind of animals that they may encounter?
I think the best time to visit Palestine is in the spring time, whereby they can find mountain gazelles while hiking, and also foxes. We have a lot of wild cats.
I've heard you have hyenas and wolves. Did you ever see any of those?
I wasn't lucky enough to see one of them, but I look forward to go on hikes and learn more about them with experts.
Yeah, with some experts. Yeah. These kind of animals, they are here, but you hardly see them because they come out in the evening. They are nocturnal animals, and then you have to be away from the city. Even though I've seen some foxes around the city.
Yes, I've seen foxes too in the city here, and they're among my favorite animals to see. So I find them really nice. They're red color. They're red foxes.
Yeah, red fox. Yeah. What would be your dream job in the future? And because you mentioned something about doing a master's. So what's your goal in life?
It would be a researcher and a wildlife photographer at an institution like National Geographic, whereby I can share my passion for wildlife and share it with the world and show that the other side or the other reality of Palestine is that it has a very unique biodiversity, and it's a very special spot for nature lovers, whoever wants to visit Palestine and is a bird enthusiast, for instance, to come in the migration season or to come in spring to see orchids and special flowers.
That's fantastic, Rana. If people came here and they wanted to go
and see birds. Would you be willing to take people on a trip if they came to Ramallah to meet you?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I would love to go with them. I think it's a very nice exercise even for listening. It's you become so engaged with the birds that you start isolating the sound of cars and just hear the birds themselves. With time, it's a really nice thing to do to just escape from the sort of fast life that we are living in. So every time we walk, we can discover something new.
It sounds almost like a mindfulness meditation practice where you go out and just focus on one aspect and you just forget about the other things. So I will post on my website and in the show notes of the podcast the link to your Instagram for sure, that people can go there. I'll post some other links to the Nature Museum and the Wildlife Society and some other initiatives. And if I have visitors in the future, I will contact you so that we can organize a special hike for bird listening and bird watching.
Yes, that would be very nice. It's a very nice experience. And I'm very happy to be here with you and have talked about it with you.
Thank you, Rana. You're doing a great job. I'm really proud of you. And I just hope that you will have so many opportunities for exploring your own Palestine with all the wildlife in it.
Thank you so much.
Today, Louisa is not alone because her cousins are visiting her. So we're going to ask them how to say certain names of animals that we heard about today in Arabic. So how do you say in Arabic the hedgehog?
Kunfud.
And how do you say in Arabic deer?
Ghazal.
And how do you say in Arabic bird?
عصفور.
And how do you say in Arabic birds?
عصافير.
Hadi, kunfud,
كنفد.
asafir,
عصافير.
ghazal.
غزال.
And how do you say fox in Arabic?
ثعلب. 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 خلينا نعيده.
Shukran, shabab. If you want to follow Rana on Instagram, go to the website storiesfrompalestine.info or look at the show notes of the podcast in your podcast player and you can find her Instagram profile. She has great pictures of birds that she posts almost on a daily basis on her Instagram account. It would be great if you leave a review of this podcast episode or in general of the podcast. I'm always very happy to hear what people think. And of course, if you want to do a donation to the podcast, you can do it on the Ko-fi platform, ko-fi.com/storiesfrompalestine. I'm still working on the special Christmas edition for the podcast, Christmas from Bethlehem. It's a little bit challenging because we are back into a lockdown and some of the people I'm working on the podcast with have actually been infected with the coronavirus. So let's hope that we will be able to get it ready before the 21st of December. Listen to next week's episode and I'll give you an update on that too. Thank you for listening and ma'as salama.